stories got to be written down only in Ashoka's first council, which puts the date to something like 280 BC. So the stories, which may have been oral tradition or written, but the actual compilation happens around that. Many people think that Kovel is working with an edition that is approximately 500 CE. Data in this Jataka tales is probably containing information for about 1,000. My dad tells the story and I tell the story. It's going to be different. The language is going to be different. My similes that I use will be different. Because we will contemporize it each time we say the story. And we will also change it depending on to whom we are telling the stories. Now this is the fantastic thing. The concept is called hermeneutics. So Jataka tales is part of the Supta Pitaka. We have 3 Pitakas in the Supta Pitaka. So in the Theravada version of the Supta Pitakas, that is where we find the Jataka tales. In the other Pitakas also we find references, a few stories which Kovel's version is said to be the most compiled one. There are 587 Jataka tales. Over 6 volumes he has worked. Okay. So volume 1 has been translated by one person, volume 2 by another person, and so on and so forth. All 6 volumes are available for you online. Source of history and things like that. But now we have even come down to oral history that can be used as a source of history to understand the past.
Could be working with what was written down in Ashoka's first council, which is around 280, which is why he's missed out on 500 years of what could actually have been done by the Buddha's followers, because there is no documentation.
Definitely.
So that's the reference.
Definitely. Okay. What Buddha said and what was documented eventually and what it has become today. What Buddhism has become today has definitely varied in time. Now this kind of a change is a normal process.
66, it spoke about woman being a property of man, so it actually spells out that thing. And I think 67 or 68, where a king is donating his queen to one of the person, so it almost looked like a property changing hands, and the woman has no story about that.
There was one story where the man was impaled alive because he wanted to get a saffron cloth for the woman so that they could go to the fair together. That was a little shocking because of impaling a man alive. Come on, okay, just for a woman. And the man, he did not care about the pain, but he said to have thought about the woman only. Yeah. So the infatuation with woman and the woman's beauty, I mean, that was brought out in that story.
So Buddha has a clear objective. Right? As a teacher, he probably has a clear objective for that particular session. But we don't know whether he actually hated women.
He hated family.
He is not necessarily hated family. He is his own personal life is a quest. It's a quest. And he thought that the family is an impediment to that quest, and he leaves it and pinch of salt. Everything has to be looked at like that only. We cannot really clarify it. We cannot. And this is something that we need to understand, because the way history has come down to us, बहुत पक्का हो गया है आजकल. But if you work with original data, you yourself can understand that it cannot become pakka. It is not possible. And this is the kind of education that society needs today.
That those biases do play a part, and you need to interpret at your own pace, because objectification, although they say history, there should be objectification, it doesn't happen. They can't look at objectifying belief.
Right. The interpretation part was more than about 40-45%.
It is completely dependent on them.
So when you talk about Westerners, the records that they have and the documentation that they have done, what they have done is they have brought in everything, they integrated that, and then they came out with their own idea, saying that, oh, this was done at that point of a time. This is how it was interpreted. But whether that idea is 100% right, whether it's 50% right, whether it's 40% right, but what was the idea originally which was given to them?
But in general, as I said, it mostly spoke about women who will try various means to achieve their needs, the human needs, the material needs, and in that way prevents a man from attaining later. Pretty much that was my take from the overall.
That women, they were already being treated as an object. And initially even Buddha did not want to admit them, right? In his the nun ordinance of nuns and stuff like that. So it should not come as that much of a shocking factor that they were treated that
A
way.
question here. So, since it's been written during the Ashoka time, so when we read it, do we also say that it was still existing in Ashoka time? Because if not, they might have changed.
So we work with history with written data. If there is a written data, you know the script and you know what it means. Then we call it history. So if there is no script, like in prehistory, Paleolithic cultures, or if it is proto-historic cultures where we have the Harappan script but we don't know what it means, so that also will be considered by an archaeologist. What is the fixed situation in this story is what we are trying to look at. Now, we have people who are saying that nothing can be fixed, right? When we are working with. Now, there are certain things that can be fixed. Now, in this whole story, what can be fixed is the bridge. Is the bridge, and it is a narrow bridge. It is a narrow bridge. We're talking about pure material culture at this juncture. So when you're reading the stories, I want you to pick up the points on fixed notions.
But how did Brahmins get translated correctly? Because when Brahmins were going with arms,
Brahmins is also a term that they are familiar with.
Which means
Europeans
monks
are
was-
also
which means
familiar.
monks was not a
Bhikshu was a very unfamiliar concept probably. Even to this day, the bhikshu is a very complex phenomenon.
Then Buddha said that go by the words that a person who is really pure and no one can impure him. Anyone who lives with a lie will always be.
Yeah, there's a story in which there's a quarrel between two high officials of the king of Kosla. So these two gentlemen are fighting, and the Buddha goes to their home to resolve the fight, and he is describing how he resolved the fight by going to their house and then calming them down, one person, and then that person becomes friendly to Buddha, and he also accepts that fact that he's quarreling with the other gentleman, and he becomes friendly, and then he takes this first official to the other official's house, and they both sort of patch up and they become friendly and all that.
Particular year is there's going to be a drought, so they instantly migrate towards the riverside because they believe the lake will dry out. There is one tortoise who says, no, I was born in this lake and I cannot leave where I was born, and he refuses to go with the rest of them. As they had predicted, the drought comes and the lake dries up. So the tortoise, to save himself, buries himself in the ground, in the clay, and he's waiting for the drought to get over. In the meantime, the Bodhisattva, who in this story is a potter, comes to dig clay for his trade. And while he's digging with a big spade, he cracks the tortoise's shell, and then he picks up the tortoise, and the tortoise then laments that here I am, I was trying to stay in the land where I was born, and look at me, even because of that I have come upon this fate where now I have to die.
Material culture aspect in it. So you have a boar skin being used to rub the crystal. We're probably talking about the lapidary industry here, the
and also
bead
the
making industry.
crystal can be used as a mirror.
Because when we are using, they're using the mirror. So when you're using it, when you have to rub the stone against skin to get the polish. It's still done, in fact. So it's probably industrialized now, mechanized now, but it is still done. So there's an observation of a lapidary industry process at this time. Now, very interesting. I don't know how many of you know the word lapis lazuli. Yeah. Now, lapis lazuli is typically not found in India. It's never been found in the Indian context. Typically, has always been coming from the Hindu Kush. So we're talking about a group of people who've gone all the way to Hindu Kush and they found it. They found lapis there. So we have people who are moving through vast distances.
The concept of a well, I mean, earlier we used to find water from the river or the lake or sea.
And digging, what did they
Yeah,
dig
so
with?
a well would mean a proper habitation and so many other things. So our sessions are working with, small elements which can be used as you study the next element. So I mean, that's the whole point. If you want to study the Jatakas fully in all its perspectives, you can probably spend a few lifetimes. So, we're doing this slowly. So, in this particular session, what I have introduced you is context. The funda is context. We have been working with Jataka Tales, which has been a translated version. Okay, and we have the problem and benefit of a translation. Some of you may be encouraged to go back to the original scripture. We also have Pali English dictionaries and things like that is available. So, you can start working with it if you want. And Fosbol's transliteration is available online for free. Okay? So, this is just a funda. It's a perspective that has been given using the Jataka Tales. So, in another session, we will be working with other.